Nothing says, "I love you," like your wife texting her ex at 2 in the morning while lying next to you in bed. The blue glow from Jenna's phone lit up her face as she typed furiously, thinking I was asleep. I wasn't. I'd been watching this pathetic dance for 3 weeks now. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Ben, we need to talk. Jenna's voice cut through the morning silence as I poured coffee in our kitchen. She stood there in her perfectly pressed business suit, looking like she was about to deliver a quarterly report instead of destroy our 12-year marriage. About what? I asked, though I already knew. The late-night texts, the sudden interest in yoga classes that ran until midnight, the way she flinched when I touched her shoulder. Yeah, I knew. I've been thinking about us, about what I need. She smoothed her blonde hair, a nervous habit she'd developed lately. Eric and I have been talking. Eric, her college boyfriend who'd recently moved back to our little Maine town. The same Eric who'd dumped her senior year for some sorority girl, leaving Jenna crying in my dorm room. The same Eric I'd helped her get over by being the reliable guy who actually showed up when he said he would. And I set my mug down harder than necessary. I want to explore things with him, physically, but I don't want to lose what we have either. She looked at me like she was presenting a brilliant business proposal. So here's what I'm thinking. You approve my friends with benefits arrangement with Eric, or I'm leaving. Because honestly, Ben, exploring my sexuality matters more to me than pretending our marriage is perfect. The words hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. I stared at my wife of 12 years, this woman I'd built a life with, paid a mortgage with, held when her father died. She wanted me to give her permission to screw her ex-boyfriend. You're serious? It wasn't a question. Dead serious. I've already talked to Chelsea about it. She thinks I'm being mature and honest about my needs instead of just having an affair like most people do. Chelsea. Of course. Jenna's best friend who'd been divorced 3 times and treated relationships like rental cars. How generous of you to ask permission instead of just cheating. Don't be sarcastic, Ben. This is important to me. More important than our marriage, apparently. That's not fair. I'm trying to be honest here. I could just sneak around, but I respect you too much for that. The laugh that came out of me sounded like a bark. You respect me. Right. So much respect that you want me to sit at home while you go play house with Eric. It's not like that. It's just physical. Eric understands that I'm married and that I'm not leaving you. He's fine with the arrangement. How modern of him. I grabbed my work jacket from the hook by the door. I need to think about this. Ben, wait. I need an answer by tonight. Eric's being patient, but he won't wait forever. I turned back to look at her. Really look at her. When had she become this person? When had the woman who used to laugh at my stupid jokes and steal my hoodies become someone who could stand in our kitchen and deliver ultimatums about screwing other men? Tonight, I said. Got it. I walked out to my truck, my hands shaking as I started the engine. 12 years of marriage, and she'd given me less time to decide than most people get to choose a phone plan. But as I drove to my first HVAC job of the day, something cold and calculating settled in my chest. Jenna thought she was being clever, presenting me with 2 choices: approve her affair or lose her completely. She'd forgotten that in multiple-choice questions, there's sometimes a third option that changes everything. I spent the day installing a new furnace for Mrs. Patterson, an elderly widow who kept bringing me sweet tea and asking about Jenna. Such a lovely girl, she said. You're lucky to have found someone so devoted. If only she knew. That evening, I came home to find Jenna pacing the living room, her phone buzzing constantly with texts. Probably Eric, wondering if he'd gotten the green light to start banging my wife officially. Well? She asked before I'd even closed the front door. I've made my decision. I sat down in my recliner, the one she'd been trying to get me to replace for 2 years. But first, I'm curious about something. How long has this been going on? What do you mean? Come on, Jenna. The late-night texts, the mysterious yoga classes, the way you've been acting like I have the plague. How long have you and Eric been talking? She had the decency to look uncomfortable. About a month. But nothing physical has happened, I swear. Just emotional cheating, then. How thoughtful. It's not cheating if nothing physical happened. Right, and I suppose all those deleted text messages were just discussing the weather. Her face went pale. She hadn't realized I'd noticed the gaps in her message history. Ben, I'm trying to do the right thing here. I could have just what? Had an affair? Yeah, you mentioned that. What a saint you are. I leaned back in the chair. Here's my answer. No. No? No, I won't give you permission to sleep with Eric. And no, I won't make it easy for you by filing for divorce either. I smiled, and something in my expression made her take a step back. See, you presented me with 2 options, but you forgot about the third one. What third option? I make you both regret ever thinking this was a good idea. The color drained from her face completely. What's that supposed to mean? It means, my dear wife, that if you want to destroy our marriage, you're going to have to work for it. And if Eric wants to play homewrecker, he's going to find out that some homes fight back. My phone buzzed with a text from Todd, my best friend and former cop who now worked private security. I'd sent him a message earlier asking for a favor. Got what you need, his text read. This is going to be interesting. I stood up, suddenly feeling better than I had in weeks. I'm going out for a beer. Don't wait up. Oh, and Jenna, you might want to check your work email. Something tells me tomorrow's going to be a very educational day for you. The look of confusion and growing panic on her face was almost worth 12 years of marriage. Todd was waiting for me at Murphy's bar with 2 beers and a manila envelope. The place was mostly empty, except for a few regulars nursing their sorrows and watching a baseball game with the sound off. You sure you want to go down this road? Todd asked, as I slid into the booth across from him. His weathered face showed concern, but I could see the hint of excitement in his eyes. Once a cop, always a cop. She made the choice when she decided to give me an ultimatum. I opened the envelope and whistled low. Damn, you work fast. Eric Lang isn't exactly a criminal mastermind. His social media is wide open, his credit card receipts tell a story, and he's been bragging to half the gym about his married conquest. Todd took a long pull of his beer. The guy's a walking cliché. Motivational influencer, personal trainer, drives a red Mustang he can barely afford, and apparently thinks he's God's gift to unsatisfied housewives. I flipped through the photos. Eric at various restaurants around town, always with a different woman. Eric at a hotel bar, clearly drunk, with his arm around a blonde who definitely wasn't Jenna. Eric's Instagram posts about living authentically and following your passion. Here's the interesting part, Todd continued, pointing to a credit card statement. 3 different hotels in the past month, the Riverside Inn, the Hampton, and that new boutique place downtown. Different dates, different amounts. Your wife's not his only friend with benefits. Son of a bitch. I studied the receipts. Jenna thinks she's special. Gets better. I talked to my buddy Mike who works security at Jenna's office building. She's been using the company conference room for personal calls during lunch breaks. Long calls, with the door locked. That's against company policy. Sure is, especially when you're in HR and supposed to be enforcing those policies. Todd grinned. Mike might have accidentally mentioned this to someone in management. You know how gossip spreads in office buildings. I felt the first genuine smile I'd had in weeks spread across my face. You're a beautiful man, Todd. Save the romance for your wife. Speaking of which, what's your next move? I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos Todd had taken of Eric's car. Well, Eric's very proud of that Mustang, posts about it constantly, calls it his baby. Would be a shame if something happened to it. Ben, I can't be involved in anything illegal. Nothing illegal, just some harmless pranks. The kind of thing that might make someone reconsider their life choices. Todd shook his head, but he was still grinning. What about Jenna? Jenna's going to learn that actions have consequences, starting tomorrow when she gets called into HR for misuse of company resources. You sent the tip? Anonymous email with timestamps and details about her personal calls during work hours. Funny thing about company phone systems, they log everything. I finished my beer. She wants to play games? Let's play games. The next morning, I was replacing a water heater for the Kowalskis when my phone rang. Jenna's name flashed on the screen. Ben, something terrible happened at work today. Her voice was shaky, panicked. Oh no, what's wrong? I kept my voice carefully neutral. Someone reported me to management for making personal calls during work hours. They're doing an investigation. They pulled my phone records and found out about the conference room usage. Ben, I could lose my job over this. That's awful, honey. Any idea who might have reported you? It was anonymous. But Ben, what if they find out about Eric? What if someone saw us talking and put 2 and 2 together? Well, if you haven't done anything inappropriate, you should be fine, right? Silence on the other end. Then quietly. Right. Of course. I'm sure it'll blow over. These corporate investigations usually do. Yeah, you're probably right. I'm scared, Ben. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered her standing in our kitchen, telling me that screwing her ex-boyfriend mattered more than our marriage. I'm sure you'll figure it out, you always do. Oh, by the way, I'm working late tonight. Big commercial job, don't wait up. I wasn't working late. I was going to pay Eric's precious Mustang a little visit. At 10 p.m., I parked 3 blocks away from Eric's apartment complex and walked through the shadows carrying a small bag of supplies. Nothing illegal, just some harmless items that would send a message. The red Mustang sat in the parking lot like a beacon, practically glowing under the streetlights. Eric had posted about washing and waxing it just that afternoon, calling it meditation in motion. I pulled on latex gloves and got to work. First, I let the air out of all 4 tires. Not slashed. That would be vandalism. Just deflated. Then I took out my bar of soap and wrote "cheater" across the windshield in big, bold letters. The soap would wash off easily, but it would make a statement. For the final touch, I opened the gas tank and poured in a bottle of corn syrup. It wouldn't permanently damage the engine, but it would cause some expensive problems that would take time to diagnose. As I worked, I thought about Jenna's phone call, the fear in her voice, the realization that her perfect little plan was starting to unravel. I was just finishing up when I heard voices approaching. 2 women, probably coming home from a night out. I quickly packed up my supplies and melted back into the shadows. "Oh my God! Look at that car!" one of them said, laughing. "Someone's in trouble." Cheater? Wow, someone's pissed. I wonder what this guy did. Probably exactly what it says. Men are pigs. I waited until they disappeared into the building before making my way back to my truck. Tomorrow morning, Eric would discover that being a homewrecker came with certain occupational hazards. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Your wife is at the Riverside Inn, room 237. Thought you should know. A friend." I stared at the message, my blood turning to ice. She'd lied to me. While I was out here playing pranks, she was with him. The smart thing would be to go home, stick to the plan, let my carefully orchestrated revenge play out. Instead, I started my truck and headed for the Riverside Inn. Some lines, once crossed, change everything. Jenna was about to learn that lesson the hard way. The Riverside Inn sat on the edge of town like a guilty secret, the kind of place where people went when they didn't want to be seen. I parked across the street and stared up at the second floor, counting windows until I found room 237. The light was on. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. 12 years of marriage, and it had come to this. Me sitting in a parking lot like some pathetic private detective while my wife was upstairs with another man. I pulled out my phone and called the hotel. Riverside Inn, this is Marcus at the front desk. Hi, I'm supposed to meet my business partner in room 237, but I lost the name he checked in under. Could you help me out? I'm sorry, sir. I can't give out guest information. Right, of course. My mistake. Could you just ring the room and let them know Ben Morrison is here? There was a pause. Hold on, sir. A few minutes later, Marcus came back on the line. Sir, the guest in that room says they don't know anyone by that name. Interesting. Could you describe the guest? Maybe there's been a mix-up. Sir, I really can't. Look, Marcus, I'm standing in your parking lot right now. I can see the light in room 237. My wife's car is parked right over there, the blue Honda with the dent in the rear bumper. Now you can either help me handle this quietly, or I can come up there and handle it loudly. What's it going to be? Another pause. Longer this time. The room is registered to Eric Lang, checked in about 2 hours ago with a blonde woman. Thank you, Marcus. You've been very helpful. I hung up and sat in the darkness thinking. I could storm up there, kick down the door, and catch them in the act. It would be satisfying for about 30 seconds, and then I'd probably get arrested for breaking and entering. Or I could be smart about this. I took out my phone and started recording a video as I walked across the parking lot. It's 11:47 p.m. on Thursday night, and I'm at the Riverside Inn because someone sent me an anonymous tip that my wife is here with another man. Her car is right there. License plate Gem 2019, the one I helped her pick out for her birthday 3 years ago. I walked up to the Honda and peered through the windows. Jenna's purse is on the passenger seat, the same purse I bought her for Christmas. And look at this. There's a note on the dashboard. I used my phone's flashlight to illuminate the handwritten note. Back in a few hours. Don't wait up. J. Apparently, my wife left herself a reminder. How thoughtful. I continued recording as I walked toward the hotel entrance. Now I'm going to go have a conversation with the front desk clerk, and then I think I'll wait in the lobby. See how long it takes for my loving wife to come downstairs. Marcus looked nervous when I walked through the front doors. He was young, maybe 25, with the kind of acne scars that suggested high school hadn't been kind to him. You're Ben Morrison, he said. It wasn't a question. That's right, the husband. I settled into one of the lobby chairs with a clear view of the elevators. Don't mind me, Marcus. I'm just going to sit here and wait. Might be a while. Sir, I don't think... Relax, Marcus. I'm not going to cause any trouble. I'm just going to sit here quietly until my wife comes down. Then we're going to have a conversation. A private conversation. In the parking lot. I kept my phone recording, narrating quietly. It's now midnight. I'm sitting in the lobby of the Riverside Inn, waiting for my wife to finish her friends with benefits session with her ex-boyfriend. The front desk clerk looks like he's about to have a panic attack. At 12:23 a.m., the elevator dinged. Jenna stepped out first, her hair messed up, her blouse buttoned wrong. She was laughing at something Eric had said, looking happier than I'd seen her in months. Eric followed behind her, tall and muscular in that obvious gym rat way, wearing a smug expression that made me want to punch his perfect teeth. They were halfway across the lobby before Jenna saw me. She stopped so suddenly that Eric bumped into her. The color drained from her face, and her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Hello, sweetheart, I said, standing up slowly. Fancy meeting you here? Eric stepped protectively in front of Jenna, puffing out his chest like a rooster. What the hell are you doing here? Waiting for my wife. You remember my wife, don't you, Eric? The married woman you've been screwing? Ben, please. Jenna started. Please what? Please don't embarrass you. Please don't make a scene. I held up my phone, still recording. Too late for that. Eric took a step toward me. You need to leave, now. Actually, Eric, I think you need to leave. See, that's my wife you've been playing with. And this? I gestured around the lobby. This is my town. I've lived here my whole life. I know everyone, and everyone knows me. By tomorrow morning, everyone's going to know about this too. You're threatening me? I'm promising you. See, my wife gave me an ultimatum yesterday. Approve her affair or lose her. But she forgot to mention that she'd already made her choice. I looked at Jenna, who was crying now. Didn't you, sweetheart? Ben, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You've been lying to me for weeks, making me feel crazy for noticing the changes, the distance, the late nights, all while you were planning this behind my back. Marcus cleared his throat nervously. Folks, maybe you could take this outside? Good idea, Marcus. I pocketed my phone and headed for the door. Jenna, we need to talk. Alone. She doesn't have to go anywhere with you, Eric said, grabbing Jenna's arm. I turned back to face him, and something in my expression made him let go of her arm. Eric, I'm going to give you some free advice. Get in your car and drive away. Right now. Because if you're still here in 5 minutes, I'm going to start making phone calls. To your boss at the gym. To your landlord. To every single one of your social media followers. I wonder how your motivational influencer brand would handle some authentic truth about what kind of man you really are. Eric looked at Jenna, then back at me. I could see him calculating, weighing his options. Finally, his survival instincts won out. This isn't over, he said, but he was already backing toward the door. Yeah, it is. After he left, Jenna and I stood in the parking lot next to her car. She was shivering, whether from cold or fear, I couldn't tell. How long? I asked. Ben, how long, Jenna? 2 weeks. Since he moved back to town. The ultimatum yesterday was just for show, wasn't it? You'd already decided. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. No, you meant for it to happen with my permission. That would have made it easier for you. I looked at this woman I'd loved for 12 years and felt nothing but contempt. Go home, Jenna. Pack a bag. You can stay at Chelsea's while you figure out your next move. Ben, please, can't we talk about this? Can't we try to work it out? Work it out? You've been cheating on me for 2 weeks and lying about it. You gave me an ultimatum while you were already screwing him. What exactly is there to work out? I made a mistake. No, Jenna. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk at the store. This was a choice, a series of choices, and now you get to live with the consequences. I got in my truck and drove away, leaving her standing in the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I watched her collapse against her car, sobbing. Tomorrow, the real fun would begin. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my kitchen with a pot of coffee and Todd's manila envelope, planning my next moves like a general preparing for war. By sunrise, I had a strategy that would make Sherman's march to the sea look like a Sunday stroll. Jenna's car wasn't in the driveway when I left for work. Good. She'd taken my advice and gone to Chelsea's. That would make things easier. My first stop wasn't a job site. It was the office of my sister Lila, the best divorce attorney in 3 counties. She looked up from her desk when I walked in, took one look at my face, and poured 2 cups of coffee. How bad is it? She asked. I told her everything. The ultimatum, the hotel, the lies. When I finished, Lila was quiet for a long moment. You know I have to ask, do you want to save the marriage? The marriage died the moment she decided Eric mattered more than our vows. Then let's bury it properly. Lila pulled out a legal pad. Maine is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery can still affect property division and alimony. That video you took at the hotel, that's gold. Her using company resources for personal calls, also useful. We're going to make sure you come out of this with everything you're entitled to. I want more than that, Lila. I want them to pay for what they've done. Legally, Ben. We do this legally and by the book. Otherwise, you could end up being the one who loses everything. By noon, the divorce papers were filed. By 2 p.m., Jenna had been served at Chelsea's house. By 3 p.m., my phone was ringing. "Ben, what the hell is this?" Jenna's voice was shrill with panic. "Divorce papers. I thought that was obvious. You can't just file for divorce without talking to me first. Actually, I can. And I did. You made your choice, Jenna. Now I'm making mine. But I thought we could work this out. I thought we could go to counseling. You thought wrong. See, the thing about ultimatums is they work both ways. You gave me one, now I'm giving you one. Sign the papers and we do this the easy way, or fight it and we do this the hard way. But either way, it's happening." She was crying again. "Ben, please. I love you. I made a mistake, but I love you." "No, you don't. You love the idea of having me as a safety net while you explore your options. But I'm not interested in being your backup plan anymore." I hung up and immediately called Todd. "How did Eric's morning go?" I asked. Todd's laughter filled the phone. "Oh, it was beautiful. Came out to find his car looking like a soap commercial gone wrong. Spent an hour trying to get the tires inflated. Then another hour trying to get the soap off the windshield. When he finally got it started, it made it about 6 blocks before the engine started making noises like a dying whale." "Where is he now?" "Tony's auto shop arguing with the mechanic about the repair estimate. Apparently, corn syrup does interesting things to an engine." "How interesting?" $3,000 interesting." I felt a warm glow of satisfaction. "Any word on the other thing?" "Oh yeah. Remember how Eric's been bragging to everyone at the gym about his married conquest? Well, word travels fast in a small town. His boss at Fitness First got wind of it and wasn't too happy about his employees' extracurricular activities affecting the gym's reputation. Past tense? As of an hour ago. Apparently, several female members complained about feeling uncomfortable around him after hearing about his activities. Bad for business. Eric was unemployed. His car was destroyed. And the day was still young. "There's more," Todd continued. "I may have mentioned Eric's situation to my cousin Danny, who works at the apartment complex where Eric lives. Turns out, Eric's been behind on rent for 2 months, and his lease specifically mentions a morality clause about activities that could damage the property's reputation. Eviction notice? Should be served by end of business today." I was starting to feel genuinely cheerful for the first time in weeks. "You're an artist, Todd. I'm just getting started. Wait until you see what I've planned for tonight." That evening, I was sitting on my front porch with a beer when Mrs. Kowalski from next door came over with a casserole and a concerned expression. "Ben, dear, I heard about Jenna. I'm so sorry." Word traveled fast in small towns. "Thank you, Mrs. K. I appreciate it. If you need anything, meals, someone to talk to, anything at all, you just let me know." She paused, then added, "For what it's worth, I never liked that Eric boy. Something shifty about his eyes." After she left, I sat in the gathering darkness and thought about the chain reaction I'd set in motion. Eric would be homeless and jobless within the week. Jenna's career was in jeopardy, her marriage was over, and her reputation was in tatters. But I wasn't done yet. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me at Murphy's bar in an hour. Come alone. E." Eric wanted a face-to-face meeting. How considerate of him. I texted back, "See you there." Murphy's was crowded for a Thursday night, which was perfect. Lots of witnesses, lots of people who knew me and would remember whatever happened next. Eric was waiting in a corner booth, looking like he'd been through a blender. His perfect hair was disheveled, his clothes wrinkled, and his face was flushed with anger and desperation. "You son of a bitch," he said, as I sat down across from him. "Evening, Eric. Rough day?" "You know damn well what kind of day I've had. My car, my job, my apartment. You're behind all of it." "Am I?" "That's a serious accusation. I hope you have proof." "I don't need proof. I know it was you." Knowing and proving are two different things. But let's say, hypothetically, that I was involved. What are you going to do about it? Eric leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. I'm going to make you pay. You and that bitch wife of yours. The entire bar went quiet. Every conversation stopped, every head turned toward our booth. Eric had just called my wife a bitch in front of half the town. I stood up slowly, and Eric scrambled to his feet as well. He had 6 inches and 50 pounds on me, but he was also drunk and stupid, which evened the odds considerably. What did you just call my wife? I asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. You heard me. Yeah, I did. So did everyone else. I looked around the bar at all the familiar faces. Guys I'd gone to high school with, customers whose furnaces I'd fixed, neighbors who'd known me my whole life. This is Eric Lang, everyone. He's the guy who's been sleeping with married women and bragging about it at the gym. He just called my wife a bitch because I filed for divorce after catching them together. The crowd's mood shifted. These were working-class people, family people, who didn't have much tolerance for homewreckers and loudmouths. Now he's threatening me because his life fell apart after people found out what kind of man he really is. I took a step closer to Eric. But here's the thing, Eric. You can threaten me all you want. You can call my wife names. You can blame me for your problems. But at the end of the day, you're still the guy who destroyed a marriage for a few cheap thrills. And I'm still the guy who's going to rebuild his life without either of you in it. Eric swung at me. It was a clumsy, drunken punch that I saw coming from a mile away. I ducked, and his fist connected with the wooden post behind me. He screamed and grabbed his hand, and that's when Big Jim, the bartender, decided the entertainment was over. That's enough! Jim came around the bar with a baseball bat. Eric, you're banned. Get out and don't come back. This isn't over, Eric snarled as 2 regulars escorted him toward the door. Yeah, it is, I called after him. It's been over since the moment you decided to mess with my family. After Eric left, the bar erupted in conversation. People came over to shake my hand, buy me drinks, tell me they were sorry about Jenna but glad I was standing up for myself. I stayed for one more beer, basking in the support of my community, then headed home to my empty house. Tomorrow, I would start the next phase of my plan, because Eric was right about one thing. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The next morning brought news that made my coffee taste like victory. Todd called at 7 a.m., practically cackling with glee. You're not going to believe this. Eric tried to stay at the Riverside Inn last night, scene of his romantic triumph. But apparently his credit card was declined. The desk clerk said he caused such a scene they had to call the cops. Where did he end up? Sleeping in his broken-down Mustang behind the Walmart. Security found him this morning and told him to move along. I felt a warm glow of satisfaction. And Jenna? Still at Chelsea's, but there's trouble in paradise. My wife heard from her hairdresser, who heard from Chelsea's neighbor, that there was a lot of screaming last night. Apparently, Chelsea's getting tired of housing a cheating wife and dealing with the drama. How long before she kicks Jenna out? I'd give it another day or two, especially after what happens next. What happens next? Check your email. I opened my laptop to find a message from Todd with the subject line, "The gift that keeps on giving." The attachment was a video file. What am I looking at here? Security footage from the Riverside Inn parking lot. Shows Eric's car arriving, shows Jenna getting out, shows them going into the hotel together. Timestamps, clear faces, the whole 9 yards. How did you get this? Marcus, the desk clerk. Turns out he's got a side business selling security footage to private investigators. Completely legal as long as it's from public areas like parking lots. Todd, you beautiful bastard. It gets better. I already sent copies to Jenna's boss, Eric's former boss, and about a dozen other people who might find it interesting. Oh, and I may have accidentally posted it on the community Facebook page with a caption about local businesses and the importance of discretion. I opened Facebook and found the video already had over 200 views and 50 comments. The good people of our little Maine town were not amused by Eric and Jenna's behavior. "This is going to destroy them both," I said. "That's the idea, isn't it?" By noon, the video had gone viral within our small community. Jenna's phone was probably ringing off the hook, and Eric was about to discover that being a social media influencer worked both ways. When you became infamous, everyone knew about it instantly. I was replacing a thermostat for the Hendersons when my phone rang. Jenna's name on the caller ID. "Ben, you have to make it stop." Her voice was raw from crying. "Make what stop?" "The video, it's everywhere. People are calling me, texting me, posting comments on my social media. My boss called and said I'm suspended pending a full investigation. Chelsea kicked me out this morning because her neighbors were harassing her about harboring a homewrecker." That sounds rough. "Ben, please. I know I hurt you, but this is destroying my life. I can't get a hotel room because everyone recognizes me. I can't go to restaurants. I can't even buy groceries without people staring and whispering." "Where are you staying?" "In my car, in the parking lot behind the library." For just a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. Then I remembered her standing in our kitchen, telling me that screwing Eric mattered more than our marriage. "You made your choice, Jenna. These are the consequences." "But I've learned my lesson. I'll do anything to make this right. I'll go to counseling. I'll cut off all contact with Eric. I'll do whatever you want." "What I want is a divorce. Sign the papers." "Ben, sign the papers, Jenna. It's over." I hung up and went back to work. The Hendersons pretended not to have overheard, but Mrs. Henderson brought me an extra glass of lemonade and patted my shoulder sympathetically. That evening, I was grilling a burger on my back deck when I heard a commotion from the street. I walked around to the front of the house to find Eric standing on my front lawn, screaming at my windows. "Come out here, you coward! Face me like a man!" He looked terrible. His clothes were dirty, his face was unshaven, and his eyes had the wild look of someone who'd lost everything and had nothing left to lose. I walked out onto my front porch, staying calm and keeping my hands visible. Half the neighborhood was watching from their windows or front yards. "Evening, Eric. You're trespassing. You destroyed my life. You destroyed your own life the moment you decided to sleep with my wife." "I loved her." "No, you didn't. You used her, just like you've used every other woman stupid enough to fall for your act." Eric started walking toward the porch, his fists clenched. "I'm going to kill you." That was a mistake. Death threats, especially public ones with witnesses, were taken very seriously by law enforcement. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," I said calmly. "Look around, Eric. Half the neighborhood is watching this. Several people are probably recording it. You just threatened to kill me on my own property in front of dozens of witnesses." He stopped walking, suddenly realizing his situation. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You're going to turn around and walk away. You're going to leave town. And you're never going to contact me or my wife again, because if you do, I'll have you arrested for stalking and harassment. You can't make me leave town. I don't have to. The town will do it for me. Look around, Eric. How many friends do you have left? How many people are willing to help you? You're unemployed, homeless, and now everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are." As if on cue, Mrs. Kowalski came out of her house with a garden hose. "You get off Ben's property right now, you home-wrecking piece of trash," she yelled, aiming the hose at Eric. "And don't come back!" Other neighbors started coming outside, forming a loose circle around Eric. Their faces showed the same disgust and anger I'd seen at Murphy's bar. Eric looked around at the hostile crowd, then back at me. For a moment, I thought he might actually try to fight his way through a dozen angry neighbors to get to me. Instead, he turned and ran. I never saw Eric Lang again. Todd heard through the grapevine that he'd left town that night, heading south with whatever belongings he could fit in his broken-down Mustang. 3 days later, Jenna signed the divorce papers. She'd found a job in Portland and was moving there to start over. She came by the house one last time to pick up her remaining belongings. "I'm sorry," she said, as she loaded boxes into her car. "I know that doesn't mean much now, But I am sorry. I know you are. Sorry you got caught. Sorry it didn't work out the way you planned. Sorry there were consequences. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been you asking for a divorce before you started screwing your ex-boyfriend. Fair would have been honest communication about whatever was missing in our marriage. Fair would have been treating me with the respect I deserved after 12 years together. She was crying again, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no lingering love. Just emptiness where my marriage used to be. What you got wasn't fair, Jenna. It was justice. And sometimes justice looks a lot like revenge. She drove away without another word, and I went back into my house now, all mine according to the divorce settlement. 6 months later, I heard through Todd that Eric had been arrested in Florida for running some kind of online dating scam. Apparently, his motivational influencer career hadn't recovered from the scandal, so he'd moved on to directly stealing from lonely women instead of just breaking their hearts. Jenna, according to my sister Lila, was working as a receptionist in Portland and living in a studio apartment. Her HR career was effectively over. Word had spread through professional networks about her conduct. As for me, I sold the house and bought a smaller place across town, started my own HVAC business instead of working for someone else. Even started dating again, a nice woman named Sarah who worked at the library and had never heard of Eric Lang. Life, as it turned out, was pretty good when you weren't married to a cheater. Some people might say I went too far, that I was too harsh, that I should have tried harder to save my marriage. But those people never had to sit in a hotel parking lot at midnight, watching their spouse come out of another man's room. Jenna wanted to explore her options. I helped her explore the consequences. And in the end, we both got exactly what we deserved.